Hello, y'all. All right. How many of you guys have connected appliances already in your kitchen? Okay. I have like 80 connected devices in my home, and unfortunately, none of my appliances are connected. So I'm really bummed out about that. I'm like, oh, it'd be so awesome. So we're going to be talking about voice, AI, and how we interact with these things. So let's just get started. And when you guys answer the questions, you can be like, hey, I'm Boat. But, they can read where you are. So let's talk about the limitations of voice. Because right now, I think we're in this heyday where we're all buying these Alexas or Google Homes, and we're like, preheat the oven to 350 degrees. And you're like, oh, that's super exciting. But what else can we do, or what are kind of the limits here?
Hi, my name's Boat at Samsung. So what we've seen in the kitchen is the limitations of voice are you can do simple things with voice. So for example, adding things to a shopping list, checking the weather, setting timers. But if you want to do something more complex, like even retrieving your shopping list, for example, if you have 25 items, like, hey, what's on your shopping list? And it rattles off 25 items. It's not something you can do with voice and hearing. And even looking at recipes or following a recipe. So trying to follow a recipe purely with voice, especially if it's a complex recipe, multiple steps, parallel steps, can be very cumbersome because you want to go back, you want to check the ingredients, you want to see how a certain technique is done. Sometimes you go to YouTube, how to julienne a carrot, how to clean a crab. So it's a very complex task, and you can't do that purely using voice. So that's where we see the limitations.
I'm going to add a little element here and ask, how does AI help make voice better? So you can talk about the limitations, but also think about how you can expand that with AI.
So I'm Shelby Bonnie, and I'm from Pylon, and we've focused on building a CMS to basically help people build for these services. And so doing that, we built two test examples. We built Tasted and the Bartender. And I think what you figure out, similar to what Boat said very quickly, is when you try to do things that take any time and are all complicated, the voice droning on, it's more complicated if you ever tried to do a recipe on Alexa or Google Home. It's more complicated actually doing with voice than actually not. You can't go back, they're rattling off ingredients. And so what we have found in a similar way is it leads you very quickly when you build these applications, you realize you have to get to multimodal fast, which is this has to be a marriage of voice and a screen. So as I'm talking, and I think in some ways recipes is the perfect example, which is I've got stuff on my hands, and so voice actually is great, which is I can say how do I do this, how do I make that, it can walk me through steps, but it needs to do it visually. And I think that was the conclusion that we came to pretty quickly. And I'd say the second thing, when you think about AI, even if you think, for instance, about a series of recipes, all of us have things we like and don't like, and so that the quicker the machine can get smart about food preferences, allergies, all that kind of stuff, and begin to customize and also know your preferences and begin to dial and make that process of picking things easier and how to make things easier, I think the better customer experience you get.
Okay. And I just noticed, Jason, you are not on the slide, so you get to say...
I did not make the picture.
Yeah. You should introduce yourself then to everyone.
Yeah, so I'm a last-minute sub. So if you've read the thing, you may be expecting Google. I am not Google. So I'm from Crank Software. Yeah, not Google. I'm looking at buying them. No. We do the interface software for these devices. So we have services and pieces that come in, and we do all the way from the very small displays up to large displays. And we're across multiple markets, whether it's industrial, medical, but devices inside this area is our fastest growing market, and it's now actually our biggest market that we're selling into with our product. And we're just making it easier to move from the design staff to the engineering staff. So we integrate with the voice and such. So we do the display and what the display looks like and what's on there, but we have to integrate it with the voice. The content's coming from the AI backend, from the web, and we're making this all work. And a lot of things, one thing I noticed with the customers I'm dealing with, everybody's looking at Google Home and Alexa and everything like that, but we're also seeing a resurgence lately in on-device voice control where people actually want these small devices to have a limited command set. And so it's actually another problem coming on, because then there's this escalation where the device can handle so many on-device commands, and then it escalates up to a higher level where it can go out to things like Google Home. So.
Okay, and that's kind of an interesting thing, because we talked a little bit about AI in terms of customization, But if you look at things like Amazon announcing their microwave, they're using AI to make the process of cooking a little bit easier. So are there examples of using AI to improve the interface? So like in the sense that I can say, Alexa, ask my microwave to cook popcorn or to reheat pizza. It's nice that I don't have to think about how many minutes I'm going to reheat pizza on what power level or whatever. Are you guys evaluating, I guess, AI in that context?
Yes, definitely. So when we look at the kitchen, we don't just look at food in the kitchen, because in the kitchen is actually a complex place where the family gathers. They do family tasks, they do cooking, they do celebrations. So how do you connect the whole family and food together within the kitchen? Simple examples are, how do you integrate your busy schedule with meal planning, right? You can't do meal planning in isolation. Meal planning is about food, but it's also about schedule and time. So how do you put those together? Another example is shopping and ingredients you have on hand and when do they expire. How do you connect all those together and also your offline shopping experience? 80% of people still actually go to a physical store. So how do you make the entire food journey of planning, cooking, managing what's going to expire, and tie all that together with AI? So we do a couple of interesting things is when you buy something and cross it off your shopping list, we actually tag it with an expiration. Apples will last like 30 days in the fridge, a steak will last 3 days in the fridge, 30 days in the freezer. It automatically gives you notifications if you haven't used them, so it prompts you saying, hey, you haven't actually used this, what you've bought, and here are some recipe recommendations based on the ingredients that you have. So those are like the simple things you can do with AI for the user in the kitchen and for the entire food journey.
And that's a lovely interaction, that kind of notification that something's about to go bad. I wish my fridge did that. We've talked about multimodal a little bit, or we have referenced it several times. So voice, screens. How do you think that's going to develop? And maybe we should talk about, like, what are the issues associated with having one screen, multiple screens, I don't know, all these screens in the kitchen?
So one of the things just as an observation, as someone who's been in the industry for a long time, is that everyone wants to do their kind of independent silos. So, as people talk, everyone wants to put a screen on every single product. And I mean, in some respects, I think all of us who own kitchens are like, I have enough screens. I probably have a TV. I'm walking around with one in my pocket. I've got a tablet. I have all sorts of things. And so people want to put screens on everything. I think if you look at kind of the history of what's happened in technology, you always end up with a kind of more open level playing field. And so I think the notion of how we think about interoperability now, and so if you think about your consumers aren't going to want to live in a single ecosystem, be it Amazon or Google or Facebook or whatever else. They're going to want to be able to move within that system. So what I think the thing looks like is I think we have an ability when going to go forward 5 years, that I should be able to talk to whatever. I should be able to pick what screen. It might be a screen in my pocket. It might be a tablet. It might be a TV. I should be able to say, can you put that on the TV? I should be able to interact with whatever. Those devices should be able to talk to all the different consumer electronics products I have. But it's very quickly when you build these, you get very quickly to the point of you have to have screens. It just doesn't work otherwise. But I think there's going to have to be an independence of how many screens we have. And I know my friend here would like more screens, where I think at times maybe we have enough screens. So,
yeah, on that, I think it's the problem that the device manufacturers, especially people here, are going to face is it's not, do I do a screen, do I do voice, do I do a mobile app? The problem is your users probably want all of them. And it's all contextual of when they're doing it, Voice is great, but it's not great when my daughter's yelling. Then I just want to be able to run over and touch the oven and turn it on. There's all these different areas, and sometimes there's more complex things I want to do. And I can think of one like with my sprinkler system where I want to set the schedule. Well, that I want to actually go to my laptop, and there's just all these interfaces that I need to jump between depending on what the task and what the environment I'm in right now at the moment is. And, that's why I say it's your users want to be able to get all of them at once, which is more work.
So, Boat, you guys have a screen on a fridge, big screen on the family hub. Do you, as an appliance maker, do you see there being a big screen on my oven or my dishwasher? I don't know.
Well, Well, maybe yes, maybe no. So the way we look at this is, since we do manufacture all these different appliances, we're looking at voice as one of the main interfaces to all these different appliances. The fridge makes the most sense. So if you go into your kitchen today, what appliance has stuff on it that has nothing to do with food? It's your refrigerator, right? It has photographs, it has schedules. Your oven doesn't have schedules, your oven doesn't have photographs, neither does your dishwasher. So that's why that's the reason we actually put the screen on the refrigerator, because it's such a common place that every member of your family goes, including your kids. The other appliances we have, the larger ones, the dishwasher, etc., we're looking at voice as the primary interface, and it's mainly control and status updates, right?
Alexa, are the dishes clean?
Well, it'll tell you when they're done.
No, clean or dirty, that's what everyone wants to know. Okay.
Clean or dirty. Right, so we have our SmartThings platform, which connects all our appliances and other third parties as well. And then we have Bixby as our voice agent, which actually connects everything together with voice. And that's the platform we're using in the kitchen and in the home as a Samsung ecosystem.
But you are also integrating with other, like Alexa and Google Home.
Yes, so on the back end, there are already Alexa and Google Home skills that work with SmartThings, which are used to control anything that's on the SmartThings platform.
That feels really difficult for consumers.
I think that's interesting, and maybe you can talk about that as well. I think we're at the point where we're fragmenting very, very fast, and I think it's going to be a time where everything needs to consolidate as well, because it's just getting too complex, in my opinion.
Well, yeah,
for the consumer.
I have it, and I'll ask you guys. I had a question during one of the panels. I was like, oh my God, am I going to have to ask if my oven comes with an open API? Is that the future?
It almost has to. I mean, the big trend, and I don't think you can actually understate the significance enough, is for our lives, we've been asked to speak computers. We've had to deal with like menus and drop-downs and search boxes. And the big trend that is happening is there's going to be a shift where humans can just speak human. And that could be text, it could be voice. And the computers will be, any hardware device, anything will be smart enough to figure out what we want. And if they don't know, they'll ask a follow-up question. Did you mean this? Did you mean that? Let me understand. That has enormous implications. And I think to the point of, it's not just voice. And it's very easy to fall into like, I don't want to talk. But like, you can imagine sitting in a meeting, interacting with a bot as to what you're going to make for dinner. That's better done in a meeting on a text device, and then having it actually send you the ingredients or send the ingredients right to a grocery store. You walk by and pick it up, or them deliver it, and then walk you through making whatever you're going to make. That's a big shift. And I think this notion of how all the devices connect is, they have to. Our expectations as consumers are, that's the big change. Which I should be able to walk into a room and say, hey, it's a little chilly. Can you bring it down to, take it up to 72 degrees, and then, later tonight take it back down. That should just be what you're able to do. And I think where I get, where it starts to feel like it gets too confusing is if everything is a brain, right? You're going to want one brain in your house. I know there's going to be a big fight. Is that a Samsung brain? Is that a Google brain? Who's the brain? But the idea, you want them integrated, and so that someone's going to have to talk to the washing machine, and someone's going to have to talk to the oven, and someone's going to have to organize that for you as a consumer.
I've been thinking this for 6 years, but we're moving off of the interfaces. So let's go back to this idea of, because we've touched on it a couple times, recipes and voice. And when we have these smarter appliances that maybe have their recipes internalized somehow, and we have the ability to talk to things like a human, what does that mean for cooking and the way we think about recipes today?
An interesting thing, if someone goes out and buys a cookbook or buys one of these kind of meal plans for a diet and stuff like that, they tend to be relatively generic, right? It gives you a meal plan of what you eat and stuff like that. I think the thing where this gets interesting is the degree to which devices using AI begin to get smarter about you and understand, like, you're allergic to garlic, you don't like tomatoes, you don't like that. I think it will transform what we do, and it'll also allow us to save money in that, as Bode said, if it knows what you're buying and therefore can say, I know you had, half a can of stewed tomatoes that you used for one recipe, wouldn't it be great if we could find another use for the other half in something else? I think, we're going to go into this place where I don't think I don't personally like the idea of kind of robots in the kitchen, but I think the idea of both making our lives easier, faster to do things, provide also more choice. I mean, one of the nice things is, it can anticipate something you're probably going to like. I think it's kind of, there's an exciting time coming that I don't think will take away the pleasures we get of being in the kitchen, but will augment it and make it better.
I was also going to say, just even food waste, it can really help with that. If it started making suggestions, hey, I know you have X, Y, and Z, you should try this recipe tonight or something like that because your strawberries are going to go bad tomorrow. So
That's the function my husband holds for me. He's like, we've had that zucchini in the fridge forever. I'm like, oh, fine.
I can give you an example on that. So we did a study we do a lot of focus groups on how people use their fridge, how they actually shop. And you can probably, I'm going to ask everybody this question and just think, the 80% of the things you shop every week are probably the same, right? Every week you just buy the same stuff. And a lot of people cook the same thing on a 2-week rotation. It's very, very common. So one thing we learned from our user groups was they're like, hey, can the Family Hub refrigerator suggest something that I don't always cook every 2 weeks, but something that's very similar on the same ingredients that I buy, so I don't have to buy something completely strange that I'm not always on my shopping list, something slightly different that can inspire creativity in the kitchen. And they want to do that for their kids as well, so that's another interesting thing is with the family of fridge, a lot of the kids are starting to cook in the kitchen because the screen is there, it's easier, it's visual, it's fun. We have Tasty on the fridge, they can see all the video recipes. So what people are, I think, actually looking for is like inspiration, something a little bit different to cook than your mundane routine and the 80% of the stuff you keep buying week over week. I think inspiration is very important, and I think AI can help with that.
Okay, I'm going to tell you, we're using the Slido panel or Slido app. No, website, y'all, website. So if you have questions, start putting those in there now, and we'll get to that in a second. Okay, so when we think about user interfaces in the kitchen, we're talking about, my God, everything might have a screen. How do you think about what to put on those screens, and do you limit them, or do I get the internet on my stove or something crazy?
I think I can answer that. I think we actually specifically look at what we want the screen to have in the kitchen. We get a lot of requests saying, hey, can you put Facebook on the fridge, right? Can you put my Instagram on the fridge? But that's not what we want. What we want is the user to have the best experience for the place that's being put in, right? What will the screen be used for when you're in the kitchen, right? And we want those specific apps to be integrated together, fulfill the user journey for simple things like even like planning a birthday, buying a gift, what recipe am I going to cook, what flowers am I going to order. All those make sense. Browsing the internet in the kitchen doesn't make sense. You have your phone, you have your tablet, and you can do that anyways. So we want to tailor the journey of the user inside the kitchen, from cooking to family experiences, celebration, and even entertainment. Like Pandora's like the #1 app on our fridge. People love listening to music. So those are the things we want to have on the screen, tailored for the user to have a delightful experience and not just keep putting on junk and just making it super confusing.
I think if you look at voice appliances today, they can serve two functions. I think one function is they can kind of be the brain of your house, and they can do a bunch of things in terms of how they connect devices and do, whether it's music or security systems or any of that kind of stuff. The second thing is they actually are a browser. And I think we have not seen a lot of really successful, what we think of as skills or applications, but we will. There's no reason that big brands, right, and they can be travel brands, they can be anything else, but you think about, for instance, American Express, and you say, okay, American Express has all these operators that are concierges. Why wouldn't that be better as a bot? Why shouldn't I be able to have a dialogue with the American Express bot using whatever the voice appliance is? And so I think you're going to have this notion of kind of brand services and ways that I connect with brands, and it could be via text, it could be via voice, but that notion of both of those things. And if you look right now in terms of what Amazon and Google are like, it's kind of like early 90s of the internet, which is they're the walled garden. They are, hey, you give us all your services, we'll manage the business relationship, we'll manage the user, we'll do all that stuff. You'll get some nice, flow from that. But I think in the end, we'll go to a much more open internet where there'll be tons of representations of brands who will have unique voices and unique experiences.
I was just going to add to your original question there about, should they be everything? I think you really have to look at devices. Is this a hub or is this an end device? And if it's an end device, it's really simple. Keep doing what you do. Like, just focus on that user experience. Make sure that's as easy and well thought out and the best user experience for that. Things like Google Home, you can think of that as a hub, and the Samsung fridge they're trying to be more than just a fridge. They're trying to be a hub inside the house of technology. Like, your phone is a hub, your car is starting to be a hub, and then there's a couple of other guys, but a lot of people need to not fool themselves into thinking that their device will be that hub. Nobody wants to sit by the thermostat and watch Netflix. It's
Fair point. Okay, real fast before we get to the user questions, and I need y'all to keep your answers fairly brief, which is kind of unfair, but we didn't talk about projection, which Bosch actually showed off at IFA, and I thought that was really interesting, this idea of, instead of screens, just projecting something on your counter, projecting information that you can interact with. Are we excited about it? Yay or nay?
I think it's an interesting concept. I think, based on what I've read, it's mainly for like recipe instruction, following stuff that may not take counter space.
Yay or nay? You can have one clarifying sentence.
I'm in between.
In between, you got it.
Yay.
You're yay.
excited.
Excited.
I'm excited to see it come out. I hope it works out. Some of these modals, they disappear. But,
okay.
yeah.
Sorry, I was like, oh, this is really exciting. Okay, so there's an interesting question on here about kitchens being fully connected and bridging the gap between the traditional devices, since a lot of these things, like I bought all my stuff in 2012 and I don't want to buy new ones for another 15 years, maybe. So how do we bridge that gap and make the kitchen smarter in fits and starts, perhaps?
I think I already talked about fragmentation. I think one thing we need to figure out is not everybody has a Samsung kitchen, not everybody has a Bosch kitchen or a Whirlpool kitchen. How do we make all these appliances actually work together on a common platform? Because right now they're completely fragmented. And the same thing for smaller appliances. They're all very siloed. They all have their own different applications. So in my opinion, I think there should be a platform that connects everything. So if you have a multi-brand kitchen and appliances, they should be able to talk and work together for your cooking experience to making it easier versus today making it more complex.
Yeah, I don't see it today. Like me personally, I'm buying my way slowly into this smart kitchen idea. Every time I replace a device, it becomes the smart part of my kitchen. It's because of the price point of appliances. Where in the auto market, if you had bought a nice car and it wasn't as well powered, there were aftermarket solutions where you could replace the panel in certain cars. But yeah, I haven't seen that today where there's this lower barrier entry to take my appliance that's still a good oven, still a good fridge or whatever, and make it smart. So maybe I'm missing something though.
Do you have new thoughts on that? All right, I was going to say that I think the devices like a Google Home and then Amazon Echo are actually coming a long way in making things smarter. I would love to see actually retrofits on appliances for some things, but that doesn't, there was talk about that, but it doesn't seem to have panned out. Is that a correct assessment on your end, do you think?
Yeah, I think that's correct. I think retrofitting any technology on a large appliance is extremely difficult.
All right. Ooh, okay, here's one sentences again, and then we're going to leave. How will AI change the way consumers cook in the future? Go. Here, we'll start on this end. Surprise, Jason.
I was waiting to hear their response. I think just the ability to see the information come at you and get a little more context for what I can do and what's available to me. It's just opening up a lot of possibilities with the suggestions and everything. So
cheaper, easier, and more inspired.
You should say that into your microphone.
Cheaper, easier, and more inspired.
Oh, wow.
Saving 10 to 15 minutes in the kitchen.
Oh, that's really nice. I like that. I'm going to go with being able to cook customized meals for your diets in a way that doesn't have the cognitive load it does today. So with that, everybody give them a round of applause.